One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to krystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode.
Did you know that the more that time goes on, the easier it is becoming to monetize your podcast? Oh, hello. Did your ears just perk up a little bit because now I'm talking about ways to make money with your podcast? I know, like everybody asks me this all the time. Like, I just started my podcast. I just launched. Now I want to make money. Well, I can tell you from doing this a long time and having the experience with working with so many podcasters that it's usually not an overnight process, right? Like, you're not just going to launch your podcast and then have millions of downloads and sponsors knocking on your door, just banging, say, please let us throw our money at you. But things have gotten easier over the last few years in how you can monetize your show. And that is exactly what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about monetizing your podcast with a membership. So let's get right to it.
Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Krystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we?
I am really excited about today's interview because I had the pleasure of meeting someone who knows so much about podcast memberships and how to do them really, really well. And today's episode is a little different because I want you to start thinking about memberships as a way of inviting people into your community. And there are many ways to do this, but today's interview is extra special. So I met Amira Viliani at the Spark Christian Podcast Conference. And we had so much fun because we just anytime I meet somebody that geeks out on podcasting as much as I do, like it makes my heart so happy. You should probably know that by now if you've been listening to the show for a while. But Amira and I just chatted about all the things whenever it comes to membership, how it works. And I think that she was excited that I wanted to know all the back end logistical things and the techie things that maybe a lot of people don't care about. But I want to understand those things better so I can help teach you, the podcaster, how to make it easier on your life. And her company, Glow, has made this just incredibly easy to monetize your podcast. So, like I said, Amira Valiani is the co-founder and CEO of Glow, the turnkey solution for podcasts that want to build subscription businesses. She founded the company after building her own local news podcast, and she was looking for ways to monetize. Then she realized there really wasn't an easy solution to build a subscription model around it. So Amira also has extensive experience on the advertising side of podcast and has represented over 50 small and medium-sized shows as an ad rep. Amira holds an MBA from Wharton, where she studied entrepreneurial management. The girl knows her stuff, okay? And you are definitely going to hear that in today's interview, so I won't make you wait any longer. Here is my conversation with Amira.
All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited to have a special guest on the show today, Amira from Glow.fm. So welcome to the show, Amira.
Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I kind of told y'all in the introduction a little bit about Amira and how we met at the Spark Christian Podcast Conference in February, which is so crazy to think about. You know, I feel so grateful that we were able to meet and have, you know, a conference where we could gather like that, because we don't know when that's going to happen again. But Amira, can you just kind of tell everybody a little bit about your background in the podcasting world and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so glad we got to meet at Spark, because it was, first of all, gathering is a treasure we now appreciate so much more than ever, but it was truly lovely. It was just such a warm place where people were just excited to help each other. So it was so fun to be at. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Glow. And what we do is we make it easy for podcasters to start their own membership programs. And the start of what we do actually comes from my own experiences. So I used to run a podcast, and it was a local news podcast where I'd reported on the city council election in my city. And, you know, what was an amazing experience, was so much fun, is, you know, I would interview the city council candidates, I would report on local issues, and we built a really strong base of people from within the city who were loyal. They loved listening to the show. You know, they'd ask questions, they were engaged. And I said, you know, I've started this thing. I spent all my time on it. Now it's time to monetize it. And so I did a couple of things. One is I said, you know, other small podcasters must have similar problems to me. Like, let me figure out how to help smaller podcasters advertise. And so I ran an advertising agency in podcasting for a little over a year, where we helped podcasters connect with advertisers, a lot of the blue chip ones where you think of, you know, Casper, Helix Sleep, and then also help them sort of carve out smaller advertisers. And we were doing that for a while when I realized, like, you know, this is just really difficult for a podcast like mine, where we have a smaller engaged audience, but super loyal, to make any significant money. Like, the advertising model just isn't built for that. So I said, you know, what if I turn this into a subscription model, almost like a newspaper, where people pay sort of a monthly amount, they get access to a private podcast, maybe a newsletter or something else, something that really helps me connect with my listeners more directly and helps them pay for the content that they value, because they told me they would pay. And so I went out of my way. I did all this prototyping. I did user interviews, like all the stuff you're supposed to do when you start a business. And then when I went to actually build the subscription model for the show, I couldn't figure out how to do it. There was just no easy tool. And the crux of it was like, man, no one has built a tool to make it easy to be able to put a podcast behind a paywall, let alone all the other things that you want if you build a membership model. Right. And so that's what we built. And that's the story of Glow, is, you know, came out of my own problems to help try to make money from my podcast.
Well, I love that you have the experience. Like, everything with Glow is grounded in the fact that you had your own podcast. So it's not like you were someone that just thought, hey, this would be kind of cool. Like, it was actually born out of necessity of you doing this on your own. So did you actually work for the city, and your job was to do the podcast, or like how did that piece of the puzzle work? Were you employed by the city?
No, I actually, my background is in media, and I had gotten a fellowship from an organization that supported local news to create a local news podcast. And the idea is
Oh,
that it's sort of
cool.
a novel way to be able to help people engage with what was going on locally.
Okay, cool. And so how long ago was that you like, what was your first experience with podcasting? Like what year was that?
Yeah, that was 2017.
Okay. Okay. That's so cool. Yeah. Because I always like to get kind of a frame of reference, because a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, we have an expert on the show. They've probably been doing it, since I've had some people on the show that have been doing it since 2008, 2009. And I'm like, what? Like
Yeah, so the
podcasting
OG
was even a
podcasters.
thing? I'm
What's
like,
amazing
what are
about
we even talking about?
What's so cool about podcasting is even 2008, like it sounds so long ago, and it is in the scheme of podcasting. But what other industry do you look 12 years ago and you're like, wow, you were there from the start? Like
Right.
no other industry, right? And what's great is it's still such a small community. I've been around it for a little over 3 years now, and now I start to feel like a veteran. Like I go to conferences and I know everyone, and there's a really tight community, but it's also incredibly welcoming, and so it's such
Right.
a brilliant community to be a part of.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but man, being at the Spark conference, I just felt like everybody was there to genuinely help each other
Yeah.
and like make introductions. And like you and I got to chat for a while, and it was just, I felt like this is so helpful. This is super, super helpful. So I just kind of feel that way with the whole community. Do you kind of get that sense too?
It's amazing. I mean, it's an industry where here's what I think is going on. First of all, no one who got into podcasting, at least until like very recently, made any money, right? So people
Right.
who got into podcasting did it because they genuinely loved it. And there are
Yes.
no rules. Like no one knows how to do anything, right? Like no one set up this
Yeah.
industry yet. And so everyone's working together to build the rules. And so you got this great combination of people who come into it because they genuinely love it. And there's no sort of hierarchy out there telling you how to do things. Like people are just sort of figuring it out. Um, and you combine it with the fact that if you're a podcaster, you love telling stories, you love talking to people. It's just a really lovely, lovely community to be a part of. So I'm grateful for that. I don't think there are other industries that operate like that. At least I don't know of them.
Right. And I think that you just gave like your first nugget of wisdom, like right now, is just telling, because a lot of our listeners are brand new to podcasting or they're in their first year. So to hear like, wait, there's no rules. Cause I feel like there's a lot of people that get sucked into, they start following one podcaster and they think, oh, this is how they do it. So this is how everyone must do it. But I totally agree with you. There are no rules. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you just make it up on the fly. You try it out. If it works, great. If it doesn't, don't do it again.
This is what's awesome about the space is there's no one telling you the way it should or shouldn't look, and there's just no parameters around anything, right? So it's like, how do I market my podcast? Well, your guess is as good as mine. There's some
Yeah.
people that do a decent job of it. There's some people that don't, but there's no sort of tried and true way. There's no Google AdWords where people have been studying search engine optimization for years and years. How do you make money? Well, there's a million different ways. There are podcasts that
Right.
have 1 million downloads per episode that make a lot of money. One of our clients has 400 downloads per episode and they make 6 figures on their podcast. So, there's tons of different variation there. And the idea is just to figure out, why do you have your podcast and how can you make it work for you and use it to accomplish your goals?
Well, I love that. And I had a few other questions, but I feel like I just want to skip to what you just said and just dive into the logistics behind it, because glow.fm, like y'all, and I call it glow.fm. Is it just glow? How do you refer to it? Because I want to
I
get with
call
the
it
full
Glow,
lingo.
but yeah, like
Okay,
the
glow.
website is glow.fm, glow.fm, so you can find us there.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to dive into the logistics, because I know that this is what my listeners are so curious about, because they hear about advertising and memberships and everything seems very vague or very technical. And someone listening to this podcast is like, oh, that sounds great for, in 5 years when I've been doing this a long time and I've got like everything under, I have a system in place, is what a lot of people are thinking. But I was so excited to talk to you because I feel like you do a good job of breaking down how you can actually monetize even if you have a small show. So can you give just kind of a walkthrough logistically how Glow can work for podcasters?
Yeah. So here's what Glow looks like if you're a listener, which is you might be hearing your podcast and you hear someone say, We are a small show where listener led. We really care about our relationship with you, and the way that we make money is through making money directly from our listeners. And what we offer our members is maybe a premium podcast, maybe it's access to transcripts, maybe it's consulting, but we offer something to our members that is unique to you and that you specifically will like because you're a fan of the show and spend so much time listening to this. So if you want to become a member of this show, click on this link in the show notes or go to this URL. They'll go to that URL. They get taken to this page. That's the page that we set up at Glow. And it's super simple for the listeners. It's set up to take less than 30 seconds to check out. They tap a button. They say, I'll pay with Apple or Google Pay. Then they're taken to a page where they have a list of podcast players if you're offering premium content. And that page is where they go access all their content. And so if they want to listen to a premium podcast that's offered through the membership, they click on the player they want to listen to. If you're giving access to transcripts, maybe you'll email them the transcripts. If you're giving access to coaching, maybe you shoot them an email and you give them a schedule to be able to schedule a coaching call with them. But what we do is we make it really easy for you to be able to, on a recurring basis, set up that billable relationship with your listener and be able to offer them some type of premium benefit on the other side in exchange for being your supporter. And that benefit might just be an email from you saying, thank you for being a supporter. But the idea here is that we set it up so that you don't have to worry about anything else. You just set up your page on Glow and you work on the content, and we help you figure out the framework for running a membership program. And we're built just for doing that. So there's a lot of other folks out there that make it easy to take money. We're meant for podcasts in particular, which means that the landing page is one-click checkout flow, Apple or Google Pay, no login necessary, and distributes benefits incredibly easily. Like, we are tailor-made for podcast memberships.
I love that. I love how specific and focused that is, because that does make a really big difference, because there's a lot of processes, being part of tons of different memberships and subscriptions and all those different models out there. Some of the processes are super clunky. So I like that it's just like one click, like just like Amazon, right? Like get in, like get out, like it's just done. And
Yeah. And built for mobile experience. Like it's meant to be super easy to check out on your flow. Like one click, get in, get out, and made to happen in less than 30 seconds. Because if your listeners are business people, right, you know that any additional friction that you add to the process just makes it clunkier and clunkier. And there's a lot of services out there that will take payment, but what you want is just the quickest way for your listener to go from wanting to pay you to paying you to being able to access whatever benefit that you're giving them. And so we're meant to be that layer in between that is as thin as possible, but collects your money for you.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Okay, awesome. So from a technical standpoint, and if anybody's listening and they're like, hang on, like just bear with this real fast, because I am going to get technical for 1 second. So does this remove the hosting site out of the equation for the content? Like if I were to have a premium RSS feed, right? I was just going to have podcast episodes that I only wanted to give to my paid subscribers. Would I only upload that content to Glow and I wouldn't put that on my hosting site? Is that how I'm understanding that?
Yeah. What we do with Glow is we offer a marketing page, a checkout process, and a premium feed distribution process.
Okay.
And what you're asking about is like, what is the premium content and where does that live? So you have options, right? You can host that with us directly. So if you have premium content that is in MP3s and you want to figure out where to host it, you can do that with us. If you have an existing host, let's say you use Libsyn or Transistor, another host out there, and you'd rather not move hosts if you want to create premium content somewhere else, just upload your MP3s to that host, and all you have to send us is the RSS feed. So we can do it either way in terms of where your premium content's hosted. But what's happening is you give us that RSS feed for wherever your premium feed lives. As soon as someone goes to the checkout process, what we do on the other side is we create an individualized RSS feed just for your member. And that is the member-specific feed that if they stop paying, gets turned off, so they don't get any new content. It also is the feed where, if they go and they share it online with 100 people, we'll be able to see that they've shared it with a ton of people and shut it off. And so what we do is we help turn your private feed that just lives somewhere off the internet and make that something that you can sell and make unique to you.
Oh, wow. So yeah, the security piece is really important because I hadn't thought about that someone could just take that URL and be like, hey guys, I only paid for this once, but here, send it to my 100 friends or share it on social and then everyone could go get it. So that's really cool that y'all have that security feature. See, y'all have thought of everything. I didn't even think about that being an issue.
We're good at what we do. Yeah.
So I want to go back to just the world of podcasting and kind of how everything has changed in the last 12 months. Would you say that people are moving more towards doing this as far as, I don't know, I like to look at both sides of the coin. I like to observe things from a listener perspective because I listen to a ton of podcasts, but also from the podcasting perspective. What do you think has been like the biggest shift that y'all have seen in the last 12 months?
In terms of membership or more generally?
Well, really just, I think membership is a great place to go because honestly, I've been listening to podcasts since 2014, 2015, probably even before that, but I had never really heard about memberships and subscription-based models that, were monetizable until probably about maybe 2 years ago was when I first started introduced to that.
I think that's right. So Glow, I've been in the podcast space for several years. Glow itself is about a year and a half old. In that time, we have gone from, me talking to people at conferences and listeners, telling people about this model, and they look at me and they say, like, people will never pay for podcasts. To, today, I think the membership model is probably by far the biggest growing segment of monetization in podcasting. And people are realizing that in order for this to become a real industry, you're going to have diverse revenue streams, that advertising doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
And more podcasters are experimenting with this model because it works and because it aligns the incentives between the podcaster and the listener, and because it is something that can work for a podcaster from day one. They don't have to have 100,000 downloads per episode to have it make sense. They can provide really great content for just a handful of people and be able to make money off of it. And so I think as the industry has grown, as more and more big players are getting into it, people are realizing, like, we need diverse revenue here. It can't all just be mattress ads. And so you've seen a really huge increase in the number of podcasters that are turning to what we call direct monetization, listeners supporting them directly.
Well, I love that you just said that you can start monetizing on day one, because I feel like that's the thing, is like a lot of people can't see it because they're like, I'm never going to get, I think this is honestly why a lot of more podcasters haven't even started, is because they can't see how they could monetize it without having the millions of downloads. So I think that you just gave everybody a gift and letting them know, like, no, you can actually, especially if you already have a following somewhere and you start a podcast, then that's a great way to immediately add monetization, like recurring revenue to your model. But I want to dive into some of the specifics about your clients and customers. So can you kind of give us a range? Like, does this mean people are charging $5 a month? Are they charging $500 a month? Like, what have y'all really seen and what your clients are doing?
Yeah, so I'll take it to, we have some clients that charge for one-time access to content, and then we have other clients that charge on a monthly basis for access to content. So I'll talk through both of those. Because the best way to think about pricing is, what is the content you're offering and how do you peg that against similar content in other places, right? So we have some podcasts that charge $3 a month for ad-free access to their content. These are typically shows that maybe they have lots and lots of downloads. They have ads. They can be ad supported. And the idea is they just want to make a slightly more comfortable listening experience for their listeners. It's probably narrative-based podcasting. It's the kind of stuff that people might pay a few bucks for elsewhere if they maybe, they're buying a short novel or something like that, right? They're just looking for entertainment. Then we have other podcasts that are charging $30 a month. These are shows that are much more tailor-made to maybe a smaller audience, but provide a specific job to be done for that audience. So maybe what they're doing is they're providing a daily 5-minute morning coaching podcast for people who just really need that extra oomph in the day. And $30 is, that sounds expensive maybe for a podcast, but think about what that compared to personal coaching or wellness coaching that you might find elsewhere. Think about that compared to maybe meditation apps or things like that. It starts to make a lot more sense why you might be able to charge that. And so you got to think about what content you're offering and how you peg that against what that costs in other industries. Similarly, if you're talking about one-time use for content for podcasts, we have quite a few shows that might charge upfront $20 or $25 for access to a season. And so, we have one show that is self-publishing an audiobook. And what they said is, I wrote this book. I want to make it available for everyone. On Audible, audiobooks cost $20. Well, I'll charge $20. That's the same value for my customer. But this way I get to make more of the money than I would be if I listed on Audible. So really what you want to do is think about, what are people paying in other places for this similar type of content? And then think about the price associated with that. Don't think about it as how much will people pay for a podcast. Think about it as how much do people pay for this type of content, no matter what the medium is.
I like that perspective too, because I'm sitting here thinking of all the podcasts that I listen to. And like I said, I'm a podcast junkie. I listen to a ton of podcasts. And I'm thinking like, man, if, Dax Shepard, hello, all the armchair expert fanatics out there, like, if he offered something that was like, hey, here, like even more behind the scenes with us for $5 a month, that'd be worth it, just because I'm such a fan of the show. And it's just, but I like the way that you broke it down, instead of thinking people are saying, I wouldn't pay to listen to this podcast, but it's like, no, you're taking them on a journey. Like you're taking them even deeper into the engagement and the relationship of the podcast host, or even the community. Maybe there's a community aspect to it or something, but it's just, you're taking your relationship with your listeners to the next level. And I love it. I think it's so smart. I think it's just such a great place to take podcasting.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I think we're incredibly excited about it. And this is, what we tell, I'm sure what you tell listeners all the time is the way to think about framing this is to figure out, who is your listener, what problem they're trying to solve. So figure out your user avatar, who are they? Why do they spend time? Even if it's only 100 downloads a month, right? Like, why did those people take the time to have you in their ear for half an hour? Like, you are solving a problem for them. You're taking up valuable time in their lives, right? So why do they listen to you? Maybe they're looking for tips on wellness, right? Maybe they're looking for tips on how to start their own business. Maybe they're looking to navigate a certain industry. And whatever you do with the membership, just think about how you might be able to double down on solving that problem as it is. And so, if you're Dax Shepard, maybe all you want is just like the ability to engage with Dax Shepard, right? Like you just love him so much and you're excited by the host. Not everyone's Dax Shepard, right? But some people are just incredible nutritionists, and they just have lots and lots of great information about how to think about your health. Well, why not take this step further and start a membership program where people who love what you're doing will pay you for maybe extra recipes every week, or a cooking podcast that they can listen along with while they're cooking their food, or a daily health perspective through a podcast, right? Like think about what your user really wants and how you might be able to double down on that through a membership program. And it's so easy to start right away. You just got to figure out like what your angle is, and then start putting content out there and figuring out what your listeners react to.
Okay, that's so awesome. And I keep going back to I'm such a visual person. So I keep going back to the logistics of how it would work from a podcaster. So we talked about kind of the listener experience. So from the podcaster, if I wanted to say, okay, Amira, I'm in, I want to sign up with Glow, then what would that look like? Is it just as simple as, fill out a form and then boom, you have a Glow site? How does that work?
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. You go to glow.fm, that's glow.fm, and you start going through the sign up process, and, you'll be asked for things like what your podcast RSS feed is, what benefits that you want to be able to offer your listeners. You get to design your own page, and you go hook up your Stripe account, or you go start a Stripe account to be able to process payouts, and boom, in 10 minutes, you could have a marketing page from Glow, which is a URL that you can send people to support you. The other thing you'll get as soon as you sign up is you'll get an email from me, and I'll ask you, like, how can we be helpful? What questions do you have? Do you want to set up a call to talk more? And so in addition to just getting started and being able to build your page on your own, you also have the opportunity to be able to access consulting from us, the experts, in terms of what might be helpful as you start your membership program. And we have a wealth of knowledge on everything from a great call to action to what benefits you should offer your listeners to how you should think about iterating and testing different membership tools. So glow.fm, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And we're going to link to all of this in the show notes. So we will make sure that that y'all can go sign up. Like if you're interested, like I think that this is the way that podcasting is going because like you said, like there's not I mean, a lot of my listeners, they have zero ambition to have a humongous podcast because that feels overwhelming to them anyway. And they want to have a deep, intimate connection with their listeners where they can be in a Facebook group and chatting with them and they can tell them, hey, this is the kind of content that we want to hear from you. And I just love the idea of a podcaster adding this piece to their marketing, to their revenue and saying like, I can give you premium content and this is how. It's super simple. So actually, I do want to go back to that real fast. So you said that you can do MP3s and what is the other kind of premium content that they can do through the Glow, actually like the portal? Like how does that work? I know you explained that earlier, but
so what most podcasters do, but it's absolutely not necessary, is they'll offer a premium podcast, right? So that is MP3s that are delivered directly to your podcast player incredibly easily. But people offer sort of a range of other membership benefits that we can help you set up. So other ones that people might use are a regular newsletter, like a premium newsletter only for members. Others might offer transcripts as part of their membership program. What we see people doing with a good amount of popularity is recurring Zoom calls. So you can automatically set those up in the back end with Glow if you want to have some kind of recurring coaching or something like that. And so there's a range of benefits that you could offer. The most popular one is premium content, but a lot of people now are thinking about like either consulting or group coaching calls, which is pretty popular, or some kind of newsletter. Those I'd say are probably where the majority of people offer premium benefits.
No, I love it so much because you just gave, I feel like you just gave me like 7 other ways like to break off content and split it. Like I'm going to have to come back and talk more about this because like I have so many ideas of how my listeners specifically could use this because being able to just take that relationship to the next level, but you're intimidated by, you're like, oh, I don't want to create a website for my podcast right now. I don't want to do all these extra things that seem really scary, but just to know that you could have it as simple as, nope, you could just upload an MP3 to Glow and then you're off to the races. Like you're good to go. And you don't have to deal with, I think that some of the other platforms that are paid, you still have, like, as the podcaster, you have to deal with the customer service or, like you said, the security issues of, you have to do all that yourself, but Glow takes care of that. Like they make sure and they take care of the podcasters and the users.
Yeah, our goal is you worry about the content and we do everything else. And so we really work hard to make sure that our customer service is really good and really personalized and that we try to make a really seamless experience for the podcaster. And we're podcast specific, right? We're not meant to be doing this for every type of content out there, but if you're a podcaster starting a membership program, we have a really great solution for you and your listeners.
That's so awesome. Because I know there's a lot of people in my audience. They're thinking about it. Like, I know we're talking to y'all. You're thinking about it. And I want you to just go check out Glow because it could be the solution that you've been looking for. Because I remember when we talked back in February, I was just like, oh, tell me more. Tell me more. Like, I just want to know more. I want to know all the things because it's just so interesting. And I think that it sounds so simple. And I think that that is where especially new podcasters really need to start is the simple processes that can actually earn you money, but it's an enjoyable experience for you as the podcaster and your listeners. So I did want to ask you, where do you see podcasting going in the next 12 months? I mean, I think back to where we were just a year ago, podcasts weren't even indexed in Google. Like that blows my mind to think that that was less than 12 months ago that actually happened. So where do you kind of see podcasting? What's the biggest trend that you see in the next 12 months?
Yeah, it's a really good question because, the podcasting is growing like crazy. And obviously the the current situation is impacting, I think, the growth of podcasting quite a bit. And I think what you're really going to see more and more is increasing popularity of what I like to call functional podcasts, right? So not just narrative podcasts, the This American Lifestyle that have been so popular and sort of ushered in the growth of podcasting, but more and more shows that are meant to fit into either particular day parts or fill specific purposes. So if you look at the last couple months, a lot of podcasting has been down or flat. It hasn't seen the kind of growth that we've seen lately. But where do you see silver linings? Well, you see kids podcasts growing substantially. I would bet, I haven't looked at it, but I bet you see meditation podcasts growing substantially. I bet you see podcasts that review books and help people feel more enriched intellectually growing substantially. So podcasts that really dip into how can I serve a particular purpose in your life and how can I help you meet a need that you've been trying to fulfill? I think those are going to grow a lot. And the good news for your audience, I think for all kinds of indie creators is that means that there's a lot of room to create your niche in the market and be able to find your 102 fans or 202 fans who are really there to get excited and come back over and over again for whatever type of niche content that you're offering for them. So I think the next 12 months, more than ever, podcasting is really going to be about the niche content that really fulfills a job to be done and serves a purpose in terms of why someone might choose to turn on that podcast as opposed to all the other content out there. And you know what they say, the riches are in the niches. So this is
Right.
it's a great opportunity to start monetizing as well.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, Amira, this has just been so much fun. And like I said, you've given me like so many ideas that I'm like, ooh, I could actually use that for premium content. So we might have to chat.
Tons of
This sounds
opportunities.
so good.
I'll say one last thing, Krystal, is like, after we have these conversations, the number one thing people say is, man, I have so many ideas. Like, where could this go? And the most difficult place that people have trouble is taking all those ideas and filtering them down into where they start. That's like podcasting more generally. And so I'll leave your listeners with one piece of advice, which is figure out who your listeners are, why they listen to you, and then choose one thing. And it could just be a single point in time, but just choose one thing that you think that they would value enough that you can be able to double down on the use of what you can offer them to test with. And that one thing might be transcripts from your episodes. That one thing might be a recipe every week or a cookbook. The one thing might be, a week's worth of just like daily coaching podcasts. But just choose one thing and start small. Really shrink the change and put it out there. Don't get so overwhelmed by what the possibilities are that you let it stop you. Just figure out your one thing and go.
Oh, that's such great advice. And I think that's like you said, that's true for all of podcasting too. But I think that getting started with something like that is it's awesome. Such great advice. I really appreciate that. So I would just want to switch gears real fast. Are you up for some rapid fire questions?
Oh, heck yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. Well, actually, you might have just answered this one, but we'll see if it's a little different. What advice would you give to a brand new podcaster?
Figure out why you want a podcast. There's so many different reasons out there, but if you figure out what your goal is and like I said, just choose the one thing and double down on that goal, things will become a lot clearer for you. Because if the reason is you just want to have fun with friends, then make it so you have fun with friends. If the reason is you want to grow your business, then think about how your podcast can grow your business. But that's not so rapid. But yeah, figure out why you're podcasting and make sure everything you do is geared towards that.
Oh, that's perfect. That's such great advice. So, what would be the dream podcast you would love to be a guest on?
Oh, this is so fun. I would say my favorite podcasts are Recode Decode by Kara Swisher and the Pivot podcast. It's a tech podcast. And Kara Swisher is, I think, one of my favorite journalists. So I would love to be a guest on that podcast. I think it'd just be fun.
That's awesome. I'm going to link to that in the show. I'm going to have to look it up and then I'm going to link to that in the show notes. That sounds great. And then do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No, I do not.
Don't.
Okay, do you want me? I can go further. How rapid do we get?
Go ahead.
I think it's all about
dig a little deeper.
I think perfection. I think getting something right is really, really important, but getting something done and out in the world is even more important. So I think really important to get 80% of the way there, feel good about what you're putting out, and then get someone to react to it.
I think you just gave a huge gift to everybody listening, because that's exactly how I feel. And I think that that's the only way that you can get a podcast out in the world, because it's never going to be perfect, you guys. Like, you can try all you want. It's never going to be perfect.
Don't torture yourself.
Yes, just get it out there. You can always make it better later. And then my last question is, with everything going on in the world with the pandemic, and, you were even speaking about, you haven't traveled as much, and that's what you were doing. Like, you were doing in-person conferences and like just gathering with a lot of people. What would be one word that you would use to describe just everything that's been going on in the world in the last few months?
You've got me speechless there. I'll say the one word for me is it's got me feeling a lot of gratitude. I feel this is all making us feel a lot more lucky for the things that we have, and hopefully I want to inspire some hope to be able to fight for a better world for everyone. So
that's so good. Thank you so much, Amira, for coming on the show today. This was awesome.
Thank you. This is so fun.
So what'd you think? I hope that you have so much more ease about exploring the world of monetizing your podcast with a subscription-based model, because whenever it comes to everything in the podcast industry, it's moving so quickly. And I love that there are new technologies coming online all the time, and Glow is the perfect example of a technology that was created out of necessity, right? Like, you heard her story, and Amira is just such a great example of being in it for the right reasons. And she just wants to help other people get their message out and really support indie podcasters just like you and I, and just get our messages heard, but also make some money at the same time. So I hope that you really enjoyed today's episode. You can find more about Amira and her company Glow at the show notes, which are at krystalprofit.com/episode 157. So make sure that you go check those out today. And I want to invite you to subscribe to the show if you haven't already. Make sure that you tune in every single week, because we put out new episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, and I don't want you to miss them, because we have been doing some incredible interviews around here, and we have some other fun things in store over the next few weeks. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss anything that is coming up. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.
Hey, Profit Podcast listeners, thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, "Send Krystal a text message." And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, "Send Krystal a text message." And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.